Welcome to the deep dive. We're going to be looking at
Oh, okay.
Chapter 8 today
Okay.
from the textbook choices. Interviewing and counseling skills for Canadians.
Right.
It's called Supporting Empowerment and Change. And
Oh.
we've got like a whole bunch of stuff to go through, notes and study guides, even some visuals. So it's
Okay.
going to be like a real deep dive into how to like
Nice.
help people make positive changes.
Yeah.
Whether you're like a professional counselor or just like interested in personal growth, there's definitely something here for you.
It's a very rich chapter, like full of practical insights.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to touch on like everything from the stages of change model to like techniques for managing those pesky negative thoughts.
Yeah. And something that really stood out to me was this idea of a strengths-based approach.
Yes.
It sounds kind of simple,
Yeah.
but I feel like there's more to it than just like focusing on the positive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like a whole philosophy, really. Instead of focusing on like deficits or what's wrong, it's about collaborating with the individual,
Okay.
recognizing their like inherent capacity for growth
Yeah.
and building on their strengths.
So it's about seeing the person as a whole, not just a collection of problems.
Exactly. It's about like believing in their potential even when they might not see themselves.
Yeah.
And it's amazing where strengths can be found.
Really?
Like the source material highlights
Yeah.
survival skills and emotional intelligence as potential strengths, which I thought was fascinating.
I like that it's almost like a detective uncovering those hidden strengths.
Yeah.
But what about when change is like thrust upon someone, like during a crisis?
Yeah.
The source material also covers crisis intervention strategies.
That's a critical area because sometimes change isn't like a choice.
Right.
It's a necessity.
Yeah.
The source outlines a 5-step approach,
Okay.
starting with ensuring physical and psychological safety.
Okay.
But what I find most interesting is the emphasis on post-traumatic growth as part of the restoration process.
Post-traumatic growth. Is it really possible to like grow from something so difficult?
Yeah.
How does that even work?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Sometimes a crisis forces us to reevaluate what's truly important.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a catalyst for personal growth,
Okay.
leading to deeper self-awareness, stronger relationships, or even renewed sense of purpose.
Right.
Of course, it's not automatic.
Yeah.
It takes time, effort, and often like therapeutic support.
That's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about this stages of change model outlined in the visuals from our source.
Yes.
It's like a map for understanding where someone is in their change journey.
Yeah, a brilliant tool for that.
Yeah.
It starts with the pre-contemplative stage, where
Correct.
someone isn't even thinking about change,
Right.
then moves through contemplation,
Okay.
preparation,
Mm-hmm.
action, and finally, maintenance.
So like each stage has its own challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, each stage has its own challenges and opportunities.
Okay.
And the source material actually suggests specific counseling strategies tailored to each.
So you wouldn't use the same approach for someone who's just starting to think about change
Right.
versus someone who's like actively taking steps.
Exactly.
That seems really intuitive.
And that's where understanding the stages can be so helpful.
Yeah.
For example, if someone's in the contemplative stage,
Yeah.
the goal isn't to push them into action,
Okay.
but to help them explore their ambivalence and weigh the pros and cons of change.
It's about meeting them where they are, not where we think they should be.
Exactly.
I'm also curious about motivational interviewing,
Okay.
a term that comes up a lot in the source material.
Yes.
It sounds almost like a self-help technique.
It might sound trendy, but it's actually rooted in solid psychology,
Okay.
especially the Rogerian approach,
Right.
which emphasizes empathy and respect.
Okay.
It's about helping the individual uncover their own reasons for change rather than imposing our agenda.
So less, you should do this, and more, what's important to you.
Precisely.
Okay.
Motivational interviewing is about recognizing that ambivalence is normal,
Yeah.
rolling with resistance instead of fighting it,
Okay.
and ultimately empowering the person to make their own choices.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I noticed the source material distinguishes between sustained talk and change talk.
Right.
Can you explain that a bit more?
Of course.
Sounds intriguing.
Sustained talk reflects a desire to continue the current behavior, even if it's problematic.
Oh,
For example, someone might say, I know smoking is bad for me, but it helps me relax.
right.
Change talk, on the other hand, expresses a desire to change, even if it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
They might say, I really want to quit smoking for my health.
Right.
A skilled counselor listens for both types of talk and uses them to guide the conversation.
So you're not ignoring the reasons why someone might be hesitant to change,
Right.
but you're also looking for those glimmers of motivation.
Exactly. It's about understanding the person's internal struggle
Yeah.
and helping them tip the scales in favor of positive change.
It's like we're helping them find their own inner compass. But sometimes those internal voices can be pretty negative, can't they?
Yeah, they can.
That's where cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, comes in, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
CBT is a powerful tool for understanding the link between our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Yeah.
It's based on the idea that our thoughts can significantly impact our emotions and actions.
The source material has this great visual of the cognitive behavioral model
Oh, yeah.
with 3 interlocking gears representing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Right.
It really brings that connection to life.
It's a fantastic visual.
Yeah.
And CBT helps us identify and challenge
Yeah.
those unhelpful thinking patterns that can sabotage our efforts to change.
Like telling ourselves we're going to fail before we even start.
That's one example.
Right.
The source material lists several unhelpful thinking patterns, including perfectionism,
Yeah.
mind reading,
Mm-hmm.
fortune telling,
Right.
and self-deprecation.
Fortune telling definitely resonates with me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm guilty of predicting the worst case scenario sometimes.
We all do it to some extent.
Yeah.
But the good news is that CBT provides a framework for managing these unhelpful thoughts.
Okay.
The source outlines strategies like evidence finding, thought stopping,
Okay.
diversion, and mindfulness, all aimed at shifting our thinking patterns.
So it's about becoming aware of those thoughts.
Right.
And then actively choosing to challenge them, not letting them run the show.
Precisely.
Okay.
And it's important to note that these unhelpful thinking patterns
Yeah.
often stem from deeper, unhelpful core beliefs
Okay.
about ourselves and the world.
Right.
Things like, I'm not good enough, or I'm always going to be alone.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, right?
Yeah.
Getting to the root of those negative thought patterns.
You got it.
Yeah.
And by addressing those core beliefs, we can create more lasting and meaningful change.
But once we start managing those thoughts,
Right.
how do we translate that into action? That's where SMART goals and action planning come into play, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. The source material emphasizes the importance of setting SMART goals.
Right.
Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely.
Right.
It's a great acronym to remember the key elements of effective goal setting.
But how does that translate into real-world action?
That's where the action planning process outlined in the source comes in.
Okay.
It involves identifying alternatives,
Oh.
choosing a plan,
Okay.
developing it,
Mm-hmm.
implementing it,
Okay.
and then evaluating and revising as needed.
It's almost like building a bridge between where we are now and where we want to be.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, with so many different models and strategies,
Right.
how does a counselor know where to even begin?
That's where careful assessment and building a strong therapeutic relationship are crucial.
Okay.
It's about listening deeply, understanding the individual's unique context, and working collaboratively to determine the most relevant and helpful approach.
Okay.
Sometimes it might be a combination of strategies tailored to the person's needs and goals.
So there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Not at all. Each person's journey is unique,
Right.
and the best approach is one that respects their individuality and empowers them to take ownership of their change process.
I'm really starting to see how all of these concepts fit together.
Yeah.
It's not just about techniques.
Right.
It's about understanding the person, their motivations, and their unique challenges.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's a holistic approach that recognizes the complexity of human experience
Right.
and empowers individuals to create positive change in their lives.
That's incredibly insightful.
Yeah,
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive,
we have.
from the strength-based approach to managing unhelpful thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that keeps coming up is the importance of empathy.
Yeah.
Not just for counselors, but for anyone who wants to support someone through change.
Yeah.
Why do you think empathy is so crucial in this process?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
When we're going through a difficult time or trying to make a change,
Yeah.
what do we need most?
Right.
Often, it's simply to feel heard, understood, and supported without judgment.
Yeah.
That's what empathy provides.
Yeah.
It allows us to connect with the person's experience on a deeper level,
Mm-hmm.
to validate their feelings,
Right.
and to offer genuine support.
It's about creating a safe space where they can be vulnerable
Exactly.
and explore their options without feeling pressured or judged.
And it's also about avoiding that righting reflex we talked about earlier.
Right.
When we're truly empathetic, We're less likely to try and fix the person or impose our own solutions.
Okay.
Instead, we can help them find their own path forward.
So empathy isn't just a nice to have. It's a
Right.
fundamental ingredient in supporting positive change.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing the inherent worth and potential in every individual
Yep.
and empowering them to tap into their own strengths and resources.
Well said.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that we all have the capacity to be agents of change,
Yeah.
both in our own lives and in the lives of those around us.
I think that's a great place to pause for now.
Yeah,
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive,
we have.
and I'm already feeling inspired to rethink my own approach to change.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And remember, change is a process, not an event.
Right.
It's a journey that unfolds over time with its own twists and turns.
And sometimes we need a little help navigating those twists and turns.
Absolutely. And that's where understanding these concepts and tools can be so powerful.
We'll be back in just a moment to continue our deep dive into supporting empowerment and change.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Thanks.
Before the break, we were talking about the importance of empathy in supporting change.
Yeah.
But what happens when those around us aren't so supportive?
Right.
The source material doesn't really address that.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And it can definitely make things more challenging.
Right.
If someone's trying to change behaviors or patterns that are like familiar to those around them,
Yeah.
it can trigger resistance,
Okay.
maybe makes others uncomfortable, or even challenges their own sense of self.
So someone trying to set healthier boundaries might encounter pushback
Yeah,
from family members who are used to them being more accommodating.
exactly.
Okay.
And it's not always intentional.
Right.
Sometimes people are just afraid of change,
Yeah.
especially when it involves someone they care about.
Right.
They might worry about losing the person they know or fear the unknown.
That makes sense. It's like that saying, better the devil you know.
Right.
So how can someone navigate that resistance from loved ones
Right.
while still pursuing their own growth?
It's not easy,
Yeah.
but communication is key.
Okay.
Being open about the changes they're trying to make,
Right.
why it's important to them,
Hmm.
and how their loved ones can support them
Okay.
can go a long way.
Yeah.
Setting clear boundaries is important too.
So it's not about cutting people off,
Right.
but about establishing healthier ways of interacting.
Exactly.
Okay.
And sometimes seeking support from others outside the immediate circle,
Okay.
a therapist,
Yeah.
a support group,
Right.
or even just friends who are more understanding
Okay.
can be really helpful.
Yeah.
It can provide a space to process emotions,
Right.
gain perspective, and build confidence.
It's like having a cheering section for your personal growth.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
We all need that support, especially when things get tough.
Speaking of tough,
Yeah.
what are some of the biggest challenges you see people facing when it comes to change,
Okay.
from your perspective as an expert?
Well, aside from potential resistance from others,
Yeah.
one of the most common challenges is simply overcoming inertia.
Okay.
Change takes effort.
Right.
It requires stepping outside of our comfort zones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to get stuck in familiar patterns,
Right.
even when we know they're not serving us.
It's like we get comfortable with the discomfort,
Yeah,
even if it's not really what we want.
exactly.
Yeah.
And another big obstacle is fear.
Okay.
Fear of failure,
Right.
fear of the unknown, fear of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Those fears can be paralyzing
Yeah.
and keep us from even trying.
I can definitely relate to that. Sometimes it feels easier to stay stuck than to risk failing.
Right.
But how do we push past those fears and find the courage to embrace change?
That's where self-efficacy comes in.
Okay.
It's that belief in our own ability to achieve our goals,
Mm-hmm.
to make things happen.
Yeah.
The good news is
Yeah.
self-efficacy can be cultivated.
How do we do that? Feels
Oh.
like some people are just naturally more confident than others.
Well, there might be a personality component,
Okay.
but self-efficacy is also very much a skill that can be developed.
Okay.
One way to do that is by setting small, achievable goals
Right.
each time we achieve a goal,
Yeah.
no matter how small.
Yeah.
It reinforces our belief in ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and our ability to make things happen.
So starting with something manageable and building from there.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about creating a positive feedback loop,
Right.
and celebrating those successes along the way is crucial.
Yeah.
It reminds us of how far we've come
Mm-hmm.
and keeps us motivated.
It's like those before and after pictures you see for weight loss or home renovations.
Right.
Seeing that progress can be really inspiring.
Yeah.
But what about when those after pictures don't quite match our expectations?
Yeah.
What about setbacks and failures? How do we deal with those without getting discouraged?
That's where the concept of resilience comes in.
Okay.
It's that ability to bounce back from adversity,
Right.
to learn from our mistakes, and to keep going even when things get tough.
Yeah.
And it's an essential part of the change process.
Yeah.
Because, let's face it,
Yeah.
change is rarely linear.
Right.
There will be ups and downs, twists and turns,
Yeah.
and moments when we feel like giving up.
It's like riding a roller coaster. There are exhilarating highs and stomach-churning lows.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And just like on a roller coaster,
Right.
it's important to remember that those dips and drops are temporary.
Okay.
They don't define the entire ride.
So it's about focusing on the long game.
Yeah.
Keeping our eyes on the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remembering that setbacks are opportunities for learning and growth.
Right.
They can help us refine our approach,
Yeah.
adjust our expectations, and develop greater resilience.
Okay.
In fact,
Yeah.
sometimes those setbacks are what ultimately lead us to our greatest successes.
That's a really empowering perspective.
Yeah.
It's not about avoiding failure, but about learning to navigate it.
Right.
And that brings us back to the idea of support.
Yeah.
Having people who believe in us,
Mm,
who encourage us to get back up after a fall,
Right.
can make all the difference.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We all need that support system.
Right.
Whether it's family, friends, a therapist, or a mentor.
Yeah.
People who can offer a listening ear,
Right.
provide encouragement, and help us see our own strength,
Yeah.
even when we can't.
And sometimes that support can come from unexpected places.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to what we discussed earlier
Okay.
about those visual representations of the stages of change and the ABC model. Like,
Yeah.
they're so clear and easy to grasp,
Yeah.
even for someone who isn't a therapist.
Mhm.
Just having those tools and frameworks can be incredibly empowering,
I completely agree.
don't you think?
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And understanding these concepts can help us make sense of our own experiences,
Right.
navigate challenges more effectively, and support ourselves and others through change.
It's like having a roadmap and a toolkit all rolled into one.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the key takeaways from this deep dive.
Okay.
These concepts and tools aren't just for therapists.
Right.
They're for everyone. They can be applied to so many different areas of life,
Yeah.
from personal growth to relationships to work.
So whether we're trying to break a bad habit,
Yeah.
achieve a personal goal,
Mm.
or support a loved one through a difficult time,
Right?
these insights can be incredibly valuable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I encourage everyone listening to take these concepts out of the textbook
Okay.
and apply them to their own lives.
Right.
Notice when you're engaging in unhelpful thinking patterns.
Okay.
Explore your own motivations for change.
Mm.
And remember, change is a process, not an event.
Right.
Be patient with yourself, celebrate your progress, and don't be afraid to seek support when you need it.
That's such great advice.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we don't have to go through this alone.
Right.
There are resources available, people who care, and a wealth of knowledge that can help us on our journey.
Exactly.
And speaking of journeys,
Yeah.
I'm realizing that our conversation today has taken us on quite a journey, hasn't it? We've explored the theoretical foundations of change,
Right.
delved into practical tools and strategies,
Yeah.
and even touched on the importance of self-care and support.
It's been quite a journey indeed.
Yeah.
And I think it highlights the fact that supporting empowerment and change is multifaceted.
Okay.
It involves understanding ourselves and others,
Right.
developing essential skills, and cultivating a mindset that embraces growth and resilience.
And it's a journey that we can all embark on,
Yeah,
regardless of our background or experience.
exactly. The capacity for growth and transformation exists within each of us.
Yeah.
It's about tapping into that potential
Yeah.
and creating the conditions that allow us to thrive.
We'll be back after a quick pause to wrap up our deep dive into supporting empowerment and change. Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we've been talking about supporting empowerment and change from this textbook, and I'm realizing we haven't really talked about like the cultural side of things.
Right.
Does everything we've talked about apply across different cultures?
Oh, that's a really crucial point.
Yeah.
While the core principles of supporting change can be like universally applied,
Right.
the specific ways we approach it need to be culturally sensitive.
Okay.
What works for one person or cultural group might not resonate with another.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly.
Okay.
Counselors or anyone supporting change really need to be mindful of their own biases
Right.
and approach each person with cultural humility.
Can you give an example of how cultural differences might come into play?
Absolutely. Think about communication styles.
Okay.
In some cultures, direct confrontation might be seen as disrespectful,
Right.
while in others, it's a sign of genuine concern,
Oh,
or the
right.
concept of self-efficacy.
Yeah.
It might be interpreted differently in cultures that emphasize individuality versus collectivism.
It's like those cultural iceberg diagrams. There's so much more beneath the surface that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights why it's so important for counselors to truly understand the person they're working with,
Right.
their values, their beliefs, and their cultural context.
So it's not just about having the right tools.
Right.
It's about using them in a way that's respectful and effective
Yeah,
for each individual.
precisely. It's about tailoring our approach to fit the person, not the other way around.
I'm also thinking about how this relates to the idea of empowerment,
Okay.
which is central to the whole chapter.
Yes,
Empowerment looks different in different cultures, right?
absolutely. In some cultures, empowerment might mean speaking up and advocating for oneself,
Okay.
while in others, it might be more about working within existing social structures to create change.
So it's not about imposing a Western individualistic view of empowerment,
Right.
but about understanding how empowerment is defined and valued
Yeah.
within each cultural context.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that requires a willingness to listen, to learn, and to adapt our approach accordingly.
It's like we've been saying throughout this whole deep dive.
Right.
Change is a collaborative process. It's about working with people, not on them.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And that collaboration needs to be grounded in respect, understanding, and a genuine belief in the person's capacity for growth and change.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has.
We've gone from the nitty-gritty details of different counseling techniques
Yeah.
to these broader reflections on empathy resilience and the importance of cultural awareness. It feels like we've come full circle.
It has been quite a journey.
It has.
And it really highlights the richness and complexity of this topic.
Yes, for sure.
Supporting empowerment and change is about so much more than just techniques and models.
Right.
It's about understanding the human experience in all its diversity.
And ultimately, it's about empowering people to live richer, more fulfilling lives.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
If there's one takeaway I hope listeners leave with,
Yeah.
it's that change is possible for everyone. It might be messy, it might be challenging,
Right.
but it's always within reach.
And by embracing the principles we've discussed,
Yeah.
focusing on strengths, cultivating motivation, managing our thoughts, offering empathy, and being mindful of cultural differences,
Right.
we can all become more effective agents of change, both in our own lives and in the lives of others.
That's a wonderful note to end on.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
A huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this fascinating chapter.
Well, thank you for having me.
And to all of you for joining us on the deep dive, as always.
Yes.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep changing.
Exactly.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that matters to you.